US President Donald Trump has written to Norway's Prime Minister saying he no longer feels bound to think purely of peace after not being awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. In the letter that he wrote, Trump also reiterated his demand for US control of Greenland, escalating rhetoric around future of the strategically important island. The comments add fresh strain to already tense transatlantic ties. Take a look.
US President Donald Trump says he no longer thinks purely of peace. In a letter obtained by Reuters, Trump told Norway's Prime Minister he no longer feels obligated to prioritize peace after failing to win the Nobel Peace Prize.
Considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8 wars plus, I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace, although it will always be predominant, but can now think about what is good and proper for the United States of America.
The letter was a response to Norway's Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre and Finland's President Alexander Stubb, who criticized Trump's tariffs on European allies after Trump threatened to impose them on countries standing in his way of taking control of Greenland. Norway's PM was quick to clarify Norway's government doesn't decide the Nobel Prize and the Norwegian Nobel Committee operates independently. Trump has been vocal about his desire for the Nobel Peace Prize, which was awarded last year to Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado. During a recent meeting at the White House, Machado presented Trump with her gold medal, though the Nobel Committee said the prize can't be transferred, shared or revoked. In the same letter to Norway's Prime Minister, Trump questioned Denmark's claim to Greenland and argued that the world was not secure until the US has, quote, complete and total control of Greenland. Greenland, rich in minerals and strategically located, is an autonomous territory of Denmark.
And US President Donald Trump is expected to meet leading global business executive in Davos on Wednesday. According to sources familiar with the matter, Trump's presence is casting a long shadow over the annual World Economic Forum as political uncertainty, trade tensions and global security dominates discussion among the world's political and corporate elite. Take a look.
The World Economic Forum got underway in the Swiss town of Davos on Monday. A steady flow of attendees filled the halls and meeting rooms, with Donald Trump's presence looming large over the annual gathering of the global elite. Sources familiar with the matter said the US president is due to meet global business leaders in Davos this week. He's expected to arrive on Wednesday, where he'll deliver a special address. The sources added business leaders, including CEOs in financial services, crypto and consulting, were invited to a reception after Trump's address. One CEO said their understanding was that global CEOs had been invited, not just those from the US. And one of the sources said the invitations had come from the White House. Several top US officials, including Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, plan to accompany Trump. The conference agenda has to some extent been overtaken by the US president's dramatic policy moves. They include his demand in recent days that the US take over Greenland. The WEF has said that over 3,000 delegates from more than 130 countries will attend this year. The list includes several heads of G7 nations. Two sources told Reuters that Russian President Vladimir Putin's special envoy, Kirill Dmitriev, will also travel to Davos and reportedly hold meetings with members of the US delegation.
US President Donald Trump's push to take control of Greenland from fellow NATO members, including Denmark, has triggered discussion within the European Union on possible countermeasures. Norwegian and German leaders say they are seeking meetings with Trump on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum in Davos later this week in a bid to diffuse the growing dispute over Greenland.
I think it would be very unwise.
United States Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent on Monday said Europe should not retaliate against any measures the U.S. takes in their dispute over Greenland, as President Donald Trump's intensified push to take control of the island threatens to reignite a trade war with Europe. Speaking on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum meeting in Davos, Switzerland, Bessent urged Europe not to doubt Trump's intentions.
And I think everyone should take the president at his word.
Trump is expected to meet global business leaders in Davos on Wednesday. His threat to implement a wave of increasing tariffs on 8 European nations until the U.S. is allowed to buy Greenland has rattled European industry and sent shockwaves through financial markets. Investors fear a return to the volatility of 2025's trade war, which only eased when the sides reached tariff deals in the middle of the year. Norwegian and German leaders say they will try to meet with Trump this week in Davos to discuss the dispute. EU leaders will also discuss how to respond at an emergency summit in Brussels on Thursday. One option is a package of tariffs on $108 billion of U.S. imports that could automatically kick in on February 6th after a 6-month suspension. Another option is the anti-coercion instrument, which has never yet been used and which could limit access to public tenders, investments or banking activity, or restrict trade in services, including digital ones. The EU said it was continuing to engage at all levels with the US, but said the use of its ACI was not off the table.
And British Prime Minister Keir Starmer on Monday said tariffs should not be used against allies and warned against the risk of a tariff war as concerns grow over potential US trade actions linked to Greenland. Speaking at a news conference, Starmer said US President Donald Trump's threat to impose escalating tariff on Britain and other European allies was wrong, stressing that the future of Greenland must be decided by Denmark alone.
Alliances endure because they're built on respect and partnership, not pressure. That is why I said the use of tariffs against allies is completely wrong. It is not the right way to resolve differences within an alliance. Nor is it helpful to frame efforts to strengthen Greenland's security as a justification for economic pressure. Any decision about the future status of Greenland belongs to the people of Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark alone. That right is fundamental, and we support it.